So let's do it. Out to the River Islands guest line for Steve Kerr, presented by Great Clips. In sports, success is about team effort, and the same is true for your hair. Great Clips, it's going to be great. Well, hello, Coach. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
We're doing great, and we're thrilled that you're back. And we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about that Wright Thompson article on you, which I thought was one of the more fascinating sports pieces I've seen in a long time. I'd love to start here. I know you've answered the question already of what would have happened if you had lost to the Clippers, but can you take us through, in your words, the emotions from the start of the day, sitting at breakfast, saying you're almost sure that you're done, to the end of the day when you looked across the room and said, I'm not leaving?
Well, I think that was a pretty good metaphor for how I was feeling. You know, in a lot of ways it did feel like it was coming to a close, just based on how the season was going and the transition that we have ahead of us. And I didn't know what was going to happen, and I just wanted to make sure I enjoyed everything and soaked it all in. So it was tricky. That day was tricky. It ended in a great way. But 2 days later we lose to Phoenix and we're done. And all of a sudden we're faced with, this decision. And what I'm most proud of is that organizationally we really had an unbelievably productive and mature process to all this to really decide, what was the best thing for the team, for the organization. And it worked out. I mean, this could have gone either way. And in the end, we agreed the partnership should continue and we'll keep this thing going. And I'm really excited about that.
Coach, I mean, have you had a minute to reflect, though, on that? Because it was one of my thoughts I walked around with yesterday. I'm like, man, if Al Horford doesn't hit 4 threes, do you know what I mean? I'm like, is Steve not the coach of the Warriors anymore?
I know, but, how many sliding doors moments are there in life? They happen all the time. And we just, all you can do is kind of figure out what's right ahead of you. And I don't know that would have changed everything, but it was a great reminder of just how much I love coaching, how much I love coaching this team and being part of the Warriors. So it was that was a great night. It was the best night of our season. Obviously, the season didn't go very well, but those moments are really special, and you live for them. And so for me, was I really ready to walk away from all this? The answer was no.
Steve, it's great to have you back. I'm curious, there's a lot of talk about percentages in this story on ESPN by Wright Thompson, and Willard just referenced it, 95% sure that you weren't coming back. I'm curious if you could let us know what was like the main factor in you feeling that way. Was it you not enjoying it as much as you had in the past? Was it this idea that you wanted to protect the organization and just it was at its natural end point? What was that feeling coming from, and what changed your mind in that regard?
I think it was more just how the season was going and where we were organizationally. And that's ultimately what the 2-3 weeks was about, really contemplating what's the best thing for the organization. And you could make the argument that it was time for a new leadership. Sometimes that's just the case. And so we had to really approach that in a healthy, productive way. And that's exactly what we did, meeting with Joe and Mike, just the collaborative process of what's the right thing to do here and what's the best way for us to, get this thing back on a better path than what we showed this year. And so, like I said, it was, there was a lot up in the air, but in the end, I think we ended where everybody feels really good about this going forward.
Steve Kerr with us here on 95.7 The Game. Coach, you and Mike seemed to really make a point to call out turnovers as a headline today. What beyond the obvious of there were too many of them, what sort of led to that being a theme of the day, and how exactly do you go about fixing that?
Well, it's got to be every stone, has to be turned over. We've got to examine everything we're doing from player development. What are we, how do we teach better decision making? How do we teach better fundamentals? We got to look at strategy. Our spacing, is our spacing causing some of the turnovers? I'm literally watching every single one from this year. And, in the past, the turnovers haven't hurt us. We've always been a pretty high turnover team, but, when you have a lot of talent, you're playing fast, and you're able to outshoot teams. You want to be aggressive, put pressure on teams. You might make some mistakes and it doesn't hurt you, but we're no longer that team. We are now a team that has to win on the margins. So we've got to gain extra possessions. We can't give away extra possessions. So we're gonna look at everything. And I think part of this too is the reason Mike and I are talking about it is we want our players to see this. We want them to understand. And I'm going to meet with them all individually and challenge them. We have to understand that for us to be successful, we can't keep doing what we've been doing and expect different results. And what we're going to do over the summer is, figure out exactly what that means.
Steve, obviously the turnovers happen on the court during games, but listening to you and listening to Mike earlier today, it felt like it was obviously so much deeper than the games, and it goes back to maybe like an organizational-wide process, and it's about practice, and it's about film study and all of that. What is the change that has to happen in that regard? And does it ultimately, most of the responsibility fall on the leaders like you and Steph and Draymond? How much of it goes deeper than just, of course, what happens during a basketball game on the court?
Well, that's what the offseason is about, is answering that question. And we have to think about our practice habits. Do we need to add certain drills? Do we need to have better spacing on the floor? And you do all these deep dives in the off season. We have our whole coaching staff working on different projects, and that allows you to come in with a plan for how to do exactly what you're talking about. But if it were easy, we would have already done it. So we've got to rethink how we've operated and how we're going to get this done.
Coach, I'll tell you one thing I heard that I would love to hear you speak on a little bit more is at the end of your talk today, you said we can't have that many players on the roster who can't play back-to-backs. But I also know that you and Mike clearly said today you want to have players like Al and Kristaps back. So how do you go about achieving both of those things?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think it was obvious last year that with the number of injuries that we had, we couldn't develop any continuity with all of the guys who were either resting or on minutes restrictions, and so we have to get younger for sure. We've got to add some more, lively, capable bodies, guys who can do what Brandon Pajemski did this year, play all 82 games. It's a very difficult thing to do these days. So, you go into an off season and you have some ideas and some thoughts, and ultimately we have to put together the best roster that we can, but we've got to have enough players who are available night after night to develop that continuity.
Steve, you talked a lot today earlier with the media at Chase Center about, what you and your wife talked about through this entire process. And one of the quotes that you said a couple of times was your wife saying, you may coach again, but you'll never coach the Warriors again. I also know a lot of that, I'm sure, is Steph Curry specifically. You also mentioned that Steph did not pound the table for you to return as the head coach, and you were not, of course, upset in any way about that. I'm curious what you can share about Steph Curry's involvement in your desire to return as the head coach of the Warriors, even if he wasn't demanding the front office to bring you back.
Yeah, well, Steph is really smart about that. He understands that it's not a player's position to dictate what's happening organizationally, not only because it's not healthy for an organization, but it also puts that player in a totally different position moving forward. And so he really respects that line between player and front office management. But he supports me, and he supports his teammates, and he supports Mike Dunleavy, and so he's just a wonderful human being, as we all know. But he has just the right balance of, letting us know, me, as a coach, what we need to do better. And he always includes himself in those conversations. Here's what I've got to do better. He's just an unbelievable partner. So our conversations were really just about the possibilities and what we had to do collectively next year to get back on track. But in the end, he wanted it to be my decision, and he gave me that respect, which was beautiful.
Just a couple more minutes here with Steve Kerr, head coach Warriors, with us on Willard and Dibs. Grandy in for Dibs, 95-7 The Game. Coach, you said today that you didn't feel like you had a very good coaching year. I wonder both what you would wish you had done differently, and also why do you think that you struggled this year?
Well, it's really similar to being a player. You have years where decisions you make click, and you have performances, as a player where you make good decisions, and it's the same thing as a coach. And I thought I made some decisions that backfired, and that's always a risk. But I don't think I ever really helped this team find its identity. And early in the season, we lost several games we should have won that really put us behind the eight ball, and I could have done some things better to help us close games out. And so I'm motivated. When you have a down year, there's got to be, for all competitors, there's a fire that's lit. Like, I got to get better. We've got to get better. And that's how I'm feeling right now.
Coach, you talked about this, a charmed basketball life. Obviously, this game, this sport, this job means a ton to you, but I know it's also gotten you through a lot of really deep, personal, dark, tough things. I'm curious how you would answer the question of just simply, what does the game of basketball mean to you?
Well, it's been such a huge part of my life. It's kind of guided my whole life, ever since college and playing at Arizona for Lute Olson. The game has been at the center of my life. And one of the beautiful parts of the game is that you are really relying on your teammates constantly, and your team becomes your second family, and you get so close. You're traveling together everywhere, and you just come to love the people you're working with and that you're around every day. And I thought about that a lot, the last couple of weeks. I just didn't want to walk away from everything that I have here and all the people in the organization, not just players and staff, coaching staff, but people in the support staff, training staff, Eric Housen and our equipment manager, travel guy, Bert Ortiz, our chef. I mean, we've got so many awesome people, Rick Celebrini, and I love seeing all these people every single day. And when you walk away, you have to understand you're walking away from more than just a job. You're walking away from a game and a community, and that's the beautiful part of the game. That's why I love it so much.
Coach Steve Kerr, well, welcome back, my friend, and also real quick, in the few weeks that we didn't get to talk to you, we've been waiting to ask you this because Draymond had that podcast comment about, quote, "I'm not sure you like me. I'm not sure you've ever liked me." I wanted to know, do you like Draymond?
I love Draymond. Are you kidding me? When you have a brother and you get into fights, sometimes you still love your brother. That's all that is. So yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that.
Okay, and then this also, Coach. Any truth to the rumor? Because I didn't read about it in the Wright Thompson thing. Any truth to the rumor that the idea of losing our weekly interviews were huge in your return?
I'm sorry, I'm breaking up here. I can't hear anything. What?
Come on, Coach.
Are you still there?
You couldn't.
You still there?
You couldn't walk.
Still there? I can't hear you.
Not only you couldn't walk away from us, especially without answering the question. Hey, have you ever Taylor Swifted us, Coach?
Never.
Okay.
Never.
All right.
Yeah, it was always. it was always in the post-game media sessions after we won, and I was getting bored with the questions. And I just decided, you know what, I'm going to have a little fun here and a little inside joke for the family.
Love it. Hey, well, Coach, first of all, thank you for another season and for dealing with our boring questions. We really, really appreciate it. And now we can officially say that we look forward already to next season. So thank you for that, and thank you for today.
Thanks so much, guys. Take care. Have a good one.
All right, you
Thanks,
too.
Coach.
Enjoy the offseason. There he goes.